Everybody, welcome. I'm Eric Shiner. I have the great honor of being the president here at Powerhouse Arts. Thrilled to see a full room, and even the overflow room next door is full, so hi, folks, over in our overflow room. We're so happy that you're here with us today for the second iteration of our incredible Brooklyn Fine Art Print Fair. And I hope that you've all had the opportunity to go upstairs and look at all of the many offerings on hand from galleries, not only from around the country, from around the world. And Luther, thank you, and Anne and Brian for all of your incredible work in bringing this fair to us and bringing so much love for printmaking, which is what everyone is here to find out a little bit more about today. Before we start, I just want to give you a little bit of context for the room that we're sitting in and what we're surrounded by. This is the MGC Community Print Studios 40th year anniversary juried exhibition. MGC, hitherto the Manhattan Graphic Center, is a decades-long old organization that was in Manhattan for much of its life as a community studio to bring artists into space to physically make artwork in print form in pretty much every type of printmaking you could imagine. They decided to celebrate their 40th anniversary to do a nationwide call. We had over 280 proposals with over 800 artworks, and these 50 or so prints are what made the final cut with our jurors, Dia Vij, who is the new Commissioner of Cultural Affairs and our former Vice President of Curatorial Programs, and Ann Schaefer, the co-director of the Brooklyn Fine Art Print Fair. But there are just so many types of printmaking here on the walls and so many beautiful outcomes. One of them actually pays homage to a certain someone sitting right here. Veronica Jackson, the artist there, might have been inspired by a certain Glenn Ligon with her glitter on that work. And she wants to meet you one day and says hi. But she's an artist living in rural Virginia. And we were so happy to see her work make it here to New York City. So without further ado, it gives me huge honor to welcome our incredible director of our print shop, Luther Davis, who is not only the nicest person in the world, but also one of the best printmakers in the entire world. And he's very humble, so he won't take that. But Luther, welcome. And Glenn Ligon, thank you for being here. And these two are going to talk about their relationship in printmaking and in friendship for the past 29 years. And they're going to do a little bit of mind reading. Have fun.
Thank you, everybody. I am very shy about any accolades to be the best of anything because printmaking is very hard. And every day you're challenged, and every day you're rewarded, but every day you're tested. And also every day I'm jealous of the work everyone else is doing. And this is part of the beauty of this medium. And then Glenn, as already said, we've been doing this for a while together.
Yeah. Yes.
And you picked the title for this.
I did, because usually I sometimes work with people in my studio, and when I'm annoyed, I say to myself, all I want you to do is read my mind. That's all I want. Why is that so hard? But Luther is an amazing mind reader, because I usually come to a print shop with some idea of what I want to do, but I actually don't really know what I want to do. And so the printer has to kind of read my mind to figure out what the better idea is or where they think I'm going, which I don't know where I'm going yet, but if they make some good suggestions, I might go down that road. So it's not an efficient way to make prints, but it's an efficient, well, it's a good way to be an artist, I think. It's a good way to be an artist.
Well, I will have to say, as being an artist as well and an educator, I often am asked, do I make my own work? And I would say, while I don't make my personal signed only, one of the greatest joys of my role is to collaborate with artists, and Glenn is key among them, and be able to say, oh, I've got this really good idea. I wonder if Glenn would be into it, right? So part of it is this, it's like I don't know, being a sound editor or something like that, where you're mixing things in your mind and coming up with beats and thinking about like who you want to collaborate with. So part of that project, this all started in 1997 when I moved to New York with my own etching press, and naively thinking I wasn't going to get a job in print, and then did get a job at Noble Serigraphy in the meatpacking district on 13th Street. And this is one of the very first things that I made, and it was with Glenn.
Was that really?
First couple months.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I was not a mind reader at all. I'll have to say, also along our journey together, the mind reading comes my way as well, because the things that we do together are interesting, and they test the print shop. And when I say me, I want you to know that I work with, in Powerhouse Arts, I shouldn't know how to say that, with a wonderful staff of 7 incredible printmakers that really none of this could be done without them. So we really work as a group. And gives me the luxury of sitting back and skipping a beat often and reading minds, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, this silkscreen is about 10 feet high, I think, and it's kind of an homage to Adrian Piper, a drawing called Self-Portrait, Exaggerating My Negroid Features. It's a fantastic drawing that was in her MoMA retrospective. And so I kind of latched onto that idea and made this print silkscreen paint. It's on canvas. I guess it's technically, well, is that a print?
It's a one-off print. We call it a painting.
Yeah, call it a painting.
People ever ask, like, how long does it take you to paint all those little dots?
No.
They're half-tone dots.
No.
Like a lifetime.
No, I'm too lazy for that. So the captions at the bottom say, self-portrait exaggerating my white features, self-portraits exaggerating my black features. The photos that we used for the silkscreen were the same, but when we were talking about this the other day, I realized or remembered that no 2 silkscreens are exactly the same.
And that's because this is the first time I printed anything this big, and I really wasn't very good at it. And this is embarrassing, I was concentrating, the seam, it's 2 screens, each 5 feet tall image, and I was concentrating on the seam where your belt is. And so I was really trying to get your belt to match top and bottom, and that was the indicator. And there's a giant squeegee, so I put too much pressure on this side, I would take pressure off this side, and it was a struggle. And then I saw the title, and I was like, I really did a poor job printing. But also, in context, I realized, if you can imagine, there was no computers involved in this. A photographer took your portrait. We used camera enlargers to make half-tone dots. There's so many steps to this process. Every bit counted.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because, this obviously could have just been 2 giant photographs. They would have been exactly alike. But there was something unconsciously interesting to me about the fact that they weren't going to be alike. And that sort of added some little conceptual bump to the project,
So with that gave me luxury to mess up everything from then on. We have a very we have a very playful, as you'll see, a very playful approach to what printmaking is. And Glenn, shouldn't speak for you, but you're not less interested in me being exact replications of things. Let's go on to the next thing and see if that's true.
This is sort of a combination of things. It was an image of a painting that I did in 1988, I guess. That's based on a sign carried by striking sanitation workers in Memphis. It was black sanitation workers not being paid the same as their white counterparts. It was the march that Martin Luther King came to Memphis to support when he was assassinated. So black sanitation workers striking, carrying these signs that said, "I am a man." And I saw one of those signs in a congressperson's office, Charles Rangel, up in Harlem, and didn't know the history behind it, but was fascinated by it as a sign, as a graphic. And then later on figured out, it's like what it was about, why Rangel had it in his office and all of that stuff. So I made a painting based on that sign. And the painting was made with oil paint and enamel paint on top of another painting, and it was a mess because oil and enamel don't dry at the same rates, and so it was cracking, falling apart. And I got interested in that destruction of the image and sort of thinking about it as kind of the process of history, how we process something that happened 50 years ago through the lens of today, how each generation kind of remakes history, has a different vantage point on it. So that sort of became, even though I don't really know what the word metaphor is, what it means exactly, it became a metaphor for that historical process. And so I have a friend who works at the Museum of Modern Art. He's a painting conservator, and I was visiting him one day, and he had this Jasper Johns, photo of Jasper Johns painting with all this writing all over it. And I asked him what that was, and he said, oh, it's a condition report. It's whenever something comes into the museum, it comes up to conservation, we make a report of all the things that we would address in conservation. I said, I got a painting for you. So it just made 2 digital images of the painting, and then how did we do the text?
We silkscreened on the text on top.
Scan the text and...
You drew on film, and
okay.
then to the size, and then we silkscreened it on top.
Right.
I got to keep this stored away here. These are origin story digital prints. These are printed with an iris printer. I had never done a digital print. Andre Raboli at Noble Serigraphy or it was Pamplemousse Press was the digital art printed that. Iris is archaic, like Edison reel digital print where you wrap the paper around a reel and it spins, the paper spins, and the head goes around. So all of this was wildly exciting.
So that means if I damage one of them, I can't.
You'll never be able to make it again.
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll need a new condition.
Buyer beware.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting to combine techniques. I mean, it was pretty straightforward for you, I imagine, but it was all kind of new for me.
Yeah, printing text is always difficult. And I would want to say, just as someone who makes art, a condition report is horrific. You're like, when you send off prints or something, and then someone sends, like, what's this dot here? And they send you something circled with a line. You're like, oh, God, what is that dot? What is that thing in the mark? You strive so hard as printers not to leave any thumbprints or residue behind. But it's liberating to see that, someone's actually taking the time to document in other ways how things fall apart, how things degrade. Because as we're making this, we're in our mind, this is going to last forever. But really, anyone dropping a piece of paper on the ground, by the way, feel free to drop paper on the ground. Today we're doing wheat pasting demonstration, glue it on the streets. It's really, paper shouldn't be precious.
Yeah. But, what was I going to say? I forgot.
That's right. Well, let's see.
Again, I don't know if this is the best use of a loser's skill, but it was fun to do. I was asked by the Walker Art Museum to do a project where I worked with communities within the 3-mile radius of the building, and Walker's in Minneapolis. And so instead of defining communities as ethnic groups, I said, I want to work with kids. But I didn't have a project. So I thought, well, what do kids like to do? They like to color in coloring books. So initially it was going to be like Star Wars coloring books, and I just thought, I can't do a whole show of Star Wars coloring books. That's too low. So I went to the Schomburg Center, part of the New York Public Library. It specializes in books by and about the African diaspora. And in the library, they had coloring books from late 60s, early 70s. And it's the moment when black educators are trying to figure out how to teach African American history to young kids, because it wasn't adequately being taught in the school system, public school system. And so they come up with these coloring books that have an image of, say, a dad reading to his son, but also an image of Malcolm X. So it's a way to sort of normalize, black heroes to young kids. And so I printed those up, or you printed those up, from the coloring books, some very large. And then, first I gave coloring book images to these kids. They were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, I think, the range. And they just colored in the coloring books as kids will do. But, you know, it was hard to teach a 3-year-old about, you know, Malcolm X. So they was like, Malcolm X has glasses. Is that you? No, baby, that's Malcolm X. So, but I just let them color in the things, and I kind of used what the kids colored to make these big paintings, sort of. So that's why Malcolm X has lipstick and eyeshadow and rouge, because some 5-year-old, you know, defacing the father figure was very much on their mind, and that was a terrifying painting to make, I must say. Struggled with that one for a long time. Because I'm bringing all these adult ideas to what an image of Malcolm X means, but of course that doesn't mean that to a kid, you know? So I'm sort of borrowing a kid's unconscious, basically.
And as a printer, printing illustrations is liberating in itself because it's line work, the purest kind, and to be able to just print line is one of the most liberating things. You're not worried about fields of color and perfection, and you know someone else is going to draw on it, so you really can just get in the moment of being with the materials. And that's, you know, we're not trying to make the perfect thing every single time, and you know, once again, that's a gift.
Is it true that I have never done a silkscreen with you where I brought you an artwork and said, let's do a silkscreen that replicates this?
You've done that, and then I've given it to you, and then you never liked it.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, we will get to some of those variations on themes, but yes, it's true. I think you might come into a conversation knowing you want, and then fall in love with the steps in between, which is the journey. Is most of the beauty is in the journey. No, actually, let's take that back. This is exactly.
Yeah, that's
this
exactly
is something
that.
where I actually had to make something look exactly like something. Oh my God, I can't believe.
Yeah, I grew up in New York and lived in the South Bronx, and we had terrible schools in the South Bronx in the late 60s, early 70s, or no, those were in the early 60s. So the public school across the street from my house, in kindergarten, a teacher said to my mother, your child might be smart here, but if they were in a real school, they'd probably just be average. And so my mom, appalled, called around and found a private school in Manhattan that would give us enough scholarship money for me to go there. So I went to the school called Walden from 1st grade to 12th grade. Walden was very, very liberal. So instead of giving us grades like normal schools, they did these written evaluations, which were way too detailed for, you know, all about personality traits and all sorts of embarrassing things, which my mom read to me, like, embarrassed. You know, I can't believe you behave like this in school. I'm like, wow.
My favorite line is in there somewhere. Glenn is not comfortable in his body.
It was the 70s. The teachers could say things like that. Now they'd be sued, but then it was like, oh, great. But the whole thing was like your permanent record. This would go on your permanent record. You know, you wouldn't get into college if somebody read this report from 5th grade. But my mom kept these things, and so I kind of got interested in doing something with them. So we decided to make some prints. The paper is handmade, Diodane.
Yeah, Diodane. This is a
sorry.
Diodane is a handmade paper by Diodane, and they are archival, which means that they are meant to last forever, and they're exactly match the colors of the end of year reports. And then we were tasked to silkscreen something that looked like old mimeograph. So silkscreen is a stamp, mimeograph was spontaneous, but also a stencil, but was smudgy and streaky and not meant to last. So it really is a stamp replicating a much less superior
Yeah, it's
stamp
sort of
in a
like
way.
how do you replicate something that's supposed to look like a carbon copy?
Yes.
That was kind of the task there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and those are actually our carbon copies. They aren't mimeograph. The outline, the base level was originally mimeograph, which is an archaic stamping machine.
Yeah.
We would now replace it with risograph. The staff, then we were on Atlantic Avenue. Right. We started at Noblesse Calligraphy. Now we're on Atlantic Avenue, where we were for 15 years, and we were bought this very precious paper, and with something we actually had to replicate. So here was this.
I forgot,
Yes.
because the paper is handmade. You couldn't fuck up, actually,
no.
because
There's
we
only
had
so much.
limited
Yes.
amount, and it was very expensive to make.
Yes, and not like we could alter the text or anything. So yeah, it was very locked into what we were doing. So I love that we said that and then proved the opposite. And as a parent, I love reading these because all of my greatest fears as a parent are manifested in Glenn's reports. And also, I know Glenn.
I turned out okay.
I want to know how wonderful Glenn turned out. And so I'm like, well, Glenn was fine.
I showed these in a gallery, D'Amelio Terrace in Chelsea, a long time ago. And I came into the gallery one day, and they were all looking at me very strangely, like, what? Somebody came in who said he was your 4th grade teacher, and he had written one of those reports, and he left you a note, and it was like, oh, despite my purple prose, I'm glad to see that you've made something of your life, or something. Anyway. And he was a florist in East Hampton. I was like, I knew it. Anyway.
Yeah, so these go on, and each one, capturing a different handwriting. I love down here, parent reactions, if any, and that.
Nothing.
As a suite, they really are an autobiography of sorts too. They're a self-portrait.
Except some of them are my brothers.
Okay. Oh, some of them are your brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them, your brothers.
I mean, it's interesting, there is an autobiographical strain in my work, but it's always through things like this, somebody else's analysis, description, report on me. It's never simply just, I write an autobiography and make it into work. It's always filtered through these sort of official things or formats that are external to me, yeah. Almost completed table.
Well made.
Well made, good student.
That's it. It really doesn't know what to do with his body. June of 1973. His behavior can be quite immature. How old were you at that time?
73. 13.
Yeah, that's on point. Come on now. Come on.
Yeah.
Here we have, I think this is a point, I love that that the report cards, where here you actually came to us with something to make, and
yeah, but this is the most fun part when something kind of fucks up. Sorry, I shouldn't be cursing, but you're recording this, right? It's just the next room. Okay, I can curse. Yeah, I had this idea of making, I think this existed as a painting first, and I wanted to make a silkscreen out of a painting so that I'd have the same thing to work on over and over again. That was the initial idea. So take an image of the painting, make it life-size to the painting, silkscreen it onto canvas with different color backgrounds, and silkscreen it in a sort of viscous ink that wasn't going to dry. Like, silkscreen ink is usually, acrylic, it just dries immediately. But I wanted something that was going to stay wet. And the idea was I was going to take those back to my studio and work on top of them and add stuff to them and all sorts of things. So I think it was literally the first image we pulled.
yes, it was.
Had these streaks in it. And you were, what was the reason?
It was a very viscous ink, and we instantly ran out. Like the squeegee going across it, the ink was depleted so quickly that we would end up with these marks where you run out, and the squeegee would just drag dry a dry blade across the screen.
And the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, that's so much better than my idea. It's so much better. Somebody was talking about, a musician talking about improvisation, and another musician asked him, in jazz improvisation, is there such a thing as a mistake? And he said, a mistake is when you miss the chance. When you don't come in when you should have come in, because that moment's gone. So I love things like this, because I could have just said, oh, that's a mistake, let's do it better next time. But I was like, oh, that's really good. Something about my work has been about erasure of text and text going to abstraction, so that the printing process itself, creating these voids in it, was totally up my alley. But I had to see it, like I couldn't have imagined doing that.
And neither could we.
Yeah. And it just happened, and I thought, oh, let's run with this. Let's run with this.
Yep.
But the problem is, as we kept doing them, you kind of learn the tricks. How to make the streaks.
Yes, that's true.
And then I was like, I don't like the ones when they've learned the tricks.
It's true.
I wanted to be more spontaneous than that.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can I unlearn the process? How can I make them unlearn the process so it's more mistake than intention?
Yeah.
So that was fun, too.
And it's fun. You were like, yeah, that really was, we're like, oh, here's the, and then we would try other weird things to like we throw a wad of paper under the canvas, try to get it to upset, and nothing worked. But,
Yeah, I would be like, oh, that's great, and take them home and throw them out.
yeah.
We threw out a lot. I think half
Yeah.
and half, maybe,
Yeah,
for
and
me.
that-
But I didn't tell you that at the time, but
Oh, yeah.
I threw out half of them.
Yeah, there you go. That happens. This is also flocked.
Yes,
These are
flocked with coal dust, which came from you. I remember that, was it?
Yes.
Atlantic, yeah,
Yeah.
Atlantic. We were talking about density, weight, and stuff, and I was thinking like, oh, I want something to use on these prints that has a kind of density, add something to the ink, but I wasn't sure what that was, because these paintings were based on just oil stick paintings. There was no coal dust in them. And you said, we were talking about diamond dust, Warhol. And I was like, copyright infringement, can't use that. Too identified with him. And you said, oh, well, there's this stuff called Magnum. And I was like, what is that? And you said coal dust. And before I'd even seen it, I was like, that was perfect. I hadn't even seen it, but I knew it was perfect. And it was perfect. It's an industrial material. It's left over from coal processing. I was buying it at an art supply store for like $5 for a quart, and then I realized it was an industrial material. I went to construction supply, and it was like 100 pounds for $10.
Yes,
And I thought, artists are such suckers.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. But what was interesting is that every print was unique then.
Yeah.
We sort of printed, we got the streaks we got, couldn't repeat that, flocked it with the coal dust in the studio. I'm sure you had coal dust all over that studio for years.
Yep.
So yeah, every print was unique, which is kind of not the way it normally works in the print shop. But
And the dust, the finest particles would cling to the very finest bits of ink. So you'd have this like whisper of smoke at times, which is, it's when you see them in person, it's pretty magical.
so that was another thing, just like Magnum. I was like, good, that's so good.
Yeah.
I'm taking that.
Yeah. I mean, I had some supplies around because always curious that what else is out there. And
What
there's-
were you using it for, though, before?
I, at that time, was contracted to be an art director at a nightclub that was being built, and I was coming up with fun things to put. They were pouring the floors into the floors so they'd be weird, and they all got shot down. The concrete artists were like, oh, this will turn to jelly in 10 years, and anyway, whatever. But I had all this surplus of interesting things from that.
Lucky me.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
so-
one on the right's too hard to see, but
Yeah, but in person, it's very subtle shifts.
yeah.
When we reviewed this last week, Glenn went, oof.
Yeah.
But not because of the idea, but just of the So this is, I'll say,
Yeah.
and you can correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. So this is the stories of everywhere you've lived in New York City. They describe the location, the address, and what the living conditions were like, and the romance of it. Printed at PS1. I said romance, but as New York living is, anyone living anywhere in the world has these stories, right? You identify.
Probably, yeah, 10 different places over the course of my life. Which is low now for many people live many more places.
Yep.
But.
And this was at PS1, Greater New York.
Greater New York, I don't remember the year.
It says here 2007.
Okay, 2007. But I think what would have been easier was just to print these on paper and stick them on the wall, but I wanted the hard thing. I wanted to make it more like an installation, whatever that meant, or whatever I thought that meant. So they gave me a room, and I was like, oh, we'll just put down a base coat, a color, and Luther can print right onto the wall. But if you've ever been to PS1, none of the walls are like flush, straight. They're just all like this. So it was a fucking nightmare to print on them.
It was a fucking nightmare. And a squeegee is a straight line, so bridging these gaps in the walls. It was also I'm printing off-site in a museum, checking in at a certain time, being allowed privileges to be in the space for a certain amount of time, and then having to leave is something that was new to us.
Right. And PS1 is so broke down, junky building, so I was like, why were they so strict about all that stuff? I mean, really, it was. That's not a read, that's a fact. It was like. So poor Luther's partner, poor Nellie, she had to literally go in and paint in the missing letters from when it was silk. There were like hundreds of them, right?
Yeah. Well, we would mask out places would not print, and then we'd mask them out with glassine and come in and do a calculated swoosh with a smaller squeegee. But I love the fact that that's there. All the printing, as you go into the museums, janky or not, around the world, and there's printed text on the wall, that is a dying craft. Was only one, there were two, and then only one silkscreener in New York City that was responsible for printing all of the wall texts on all the museums. And if you read about them, they loved going in and then thinking that every time they printed and it was painted over, the museum was getting slightly smaller. So it was like this revenge for all of it, right? It's like they were getting slightly small. And it's not vinyl, Go in there, take off a letter, put it here, respell things.
Yeah. And vinyl's really expensive, but how much was, silk screening, the guy who did the wall labels, that was really expensive, wasn't it?
It's not expensive enough. It's really, it's a challenging thing.
Right.
And yeah.
Okay.
So there's a new generation is picking up that mantle. You can ask them about that. But yes. And wonderful people all. But doing this, we are doing it and giggling about the text. So it wasn't really, it was hard work, but we're having fun at the same time. The Come Out series. So this is a point of mind reading where Glenn approached us about a very large repeating pattern, and we had to build a system and a table to execute it. So we didn't have didn't have enough big enough stuff for any of the stuff you wanted to do. So we built a table, and it's with us today, and it changed the whole way we work and so fast forward to now, this is a very important project in the print shop's career because it set up a lot of stuff we do daily now. So.
Yeah, and the paintings are based on.
How big?
Some of them, I think, they were printed in panels that we put together. I think the biggest painting maybe is 20 feet long, something like that. But the sections were probably 7 by 10, something like that. Yeah, they were big. But what was interesting, give you the backstory. It was the paintings had come out. They were based on listening to Steve Reich. Composition called Come Out from early, I think 65, 66. He takes the testimony of this kid in Harlem called Daniel Ham, who was accused of a crime a murder he didn't commit, and was abused in the police station. And Daniel says in this testimony after this beating, says he was hurt, but he wasn't bleeding. So he says, I had to open the bruise up to let some of the blues. He says bruised blood, but he also says blues blood. It's a sort of funny slip of the tongue. Come out to show them. And so Reich takes that little section of text from this taped testimony by Daniel Ham and makes this composition out of it by overlapping the text on itself, the speech on itself. So it goes towards abstraction, which many, many years later, I showed some of these paintings, maybe ICA Philadelphia, and I was thinking about Steve Reich. It was like, oh, text taken to abstraction, text taken from a particular kind of social situation or political situation, repeating text. That's just my work. But it had never occurred to me, in a way, to use that. I had been listening to Come Out for years before I made these paintings, but it never occurred to me that there's some parallel between what he was doing with these tape loop compositions in the 60s and what I was doing in these paintings that had repeating text in them.
What's, as a printer, one of the great joys of making these is the text wiping out itself. And the fact that you have these clunky halftone dots, the dots that comprise the image going on top of each other and creating these secondary and tertiary patterns called mores. So you have patterns intersecting patterns, and they're creating other patterns. And so these lines that you see are usually print defect. I love them. They really show how it all is stitched together. And so as we're working with these, sometimes these dark strips are the text printed over and over on top of each other so much time that they created a field of black. And this one they're a little more open and airy. And you can make out the text and you can't. So they're hypnotic. And they fill the room. I mean, look at that. They fill the room. So you're presented with this from all levels and depths, the text.
But what's funny about this is I had to be there when we printed these things because there were some mores I probably didn't like, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's not working, let's print some more.
Well, actually, the first moire we're embarrassed about. Right? We're
Really?
like, we chose the wrong angle of the dots. They're intersecting.
Okay.
We're trying to explain why this thing has happened.
Yeah.
You know, embarrassed, like, I'm so sorry, you know, oof. And you're like, do
Well,
it again.
y'all must have been so sick of me every day I was in there. I was like, let's print this again. Let's print this 5 times. Let's print this 10 times. It was amazing. It took weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And the canvas is spooling up and over a table that we're printing on, then down, and we're rolling up as we go. And it was. I would say it was pretty fun. I don't know if my colleagues, Brett Groves and Dennis Roshik, would agree. This is actually a print on paper.
Yeah. It is a photo of a neon that, I don't know how we got those scratches in the bottom, though.
I dropped the film on the ground.
Okay.
And then accidentally dragged it across the floor
Okay.
a couple of times.
And that's, well, that was
and
good.
then did it again. So it's an old printmaking trick, but it's a great one. You have a photo image on film, and you want marks, and you braid the
Yeah,
marks.
because just as a photo image, it wasn't that interesting. There had to be some other layer, some interference that kind of made the text a bit disappear. It's actually, the text is reversed of the actual image. So yeah, but just to, 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So
We'll speed up.
imagine this. So this was a benefit print.
Yeah.
And then here's another one, another attempt at degradation of the same image.
No, different image.
Oh, different. Yeah, you're right. Whoops, not that far. I'm going to stretch this
Yeah.
out by going all the way back.
But
Yeah,
about the
different
same
image.
size, but how did we do this?
We folded the original photo and abraded it as well.
Huh.
Oh, here, another condition report.
Yeah. This book was from late 60s, written by these two psychiatrists, William Greer and Price Cobbs. I didn't find out too much later that the William Greer was David Allen Greer's father, the actor. And so I asked him about what was that like when this book came out. And he's like, well, it wasn't like we were sitting at the dinner table, you know, talking to each other in Swahili or something. It was just a normal family. It's just my dad wrote this book, you know. But I got fascinated with the cover image, the sort of representation of black masculinity. But again, the book was old, it was falling apart, so I asked a paper conservator to do a condition report on it. So I made a set of prints.
And cracks, dents, folds, nightmares in my life. These appeal to me in so many ways.
So it's a digital print with the silkscreen on top.
Yeah. I really love this silkscreen. This is what the origin of the pages are.
James Baldwin essay Strange in the Village, which a lot of my painting work was based on. The book was in my studio for many years and got paint splattered. So we just took a picture of that paint splattered page and silkscreened it over itself, or silkscreened like 17 pages over.
Yeah, well, here we started with a page and it wasn't interesting. So this is all of them together, but each page cancels out the page before. So it's a page printed, it's a page with page 2 printed on page 1, et cetera,
Yeah.
as they slowly, all the noise is repeated, but then starts wiping and darkening itself out. And you have this layer of black on black on black on black
Yep.
on black.
Yep.
And this is the sort of thing that is, you know, when you're working together and you're being playful, you take chances, and sometimes like, what would it look like if we just, also in silkscreen we use the same paper to get the water out, and you're just like, throw in another piece of paper that's fresh, but you print on the stuff that you've already printed on just to get the press going. And so that the beauty of that is really,
All artists love that.
Yes, it's
I
true,
mean,
yes.
Just a lot of good work comes out of those, seeing those sort of off prints,
Yep.
over prints.
Yep.
They're often better than, at least for me, what I was trying to do.
Yeah. And that really speaks to that process. Yeah. This is a body work that we've done, revisited years,
Right.
like 3 years.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This starts as etching. The source material is etching by Greg Burnett.
Right. Started as a drawing,
Okay.
stenciling through letter forms, letter stencils with ink. You know, when you stencil through letter stencils with ink, the ink just bleeds out. And so it's sort of like this alphabet that's turning into abstraction. Very loose compositionally for me. And then I made etchings based on those drawings, and then I gave that etching to Luther and said, I want to make paintings. Can we blow this up and silkscreen it on prepared grounds? So the paintings are like 8 feet tall, maybe.
And then some are on paper too.
Yeah.
Let's see and here they are, the
one of
very
the paintings. That's a smaller one on the black and white's a small one, maybe like this. And the other one's about 8 feet tall. So there's silkscreen, but then I also made stencils that were the same as the silkscreen marks. So I used those stencils, going back in and adding stuff compositionally with oil stick. So it's sort of oil stick stencils, and then there's some funny thing where I was like, you know, I don't usually work like this, so I don't really understand composition. It takes me a while to figure out, like, is this any good? Maybe I should add something, I don't know. So I would just tear out pieces of paper and just stick them on. It's like, oh, it needs something there, just stick them on. And then I realized, like, I like the pieces of paper. We'll just leave the pieces of paper. So they became part of the process of making them. So the very flat ones that you see, the very flat areas, those are actually just pieces of black paper.
I try to find a video of us producing these, because we were part of Powerhouse Arts then, but in Red Hook in an old paint and varnish factory. And we had rafters, and we hung all these from the rafters. So the entire space was filled with paintings hanging like laundry, huge sheets, and yeah.
Right, because again, they were printed with a very
Slow drying
drying ink, so they had to be kind of hung out of the way, so you just
Yeah.
hung them above the printing table. So
Yeah,
it's
and
hilarious.
they would fill up the space, and then other artists would have to sort of duck in when they come to visit us.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, don't mind that. That's just some Glenn Ligons. But part of the beauty of the shop, of a collaborative print shop, is that while we're working with Glenn, other artists are seeing Glenn's work, and Glenn is seeing their work. One of my favorite moments in my entire career was we were working with Julia Wachtel, and you came into the studio and saw Julia's work, and you're like, are these Julia Wachtels? These are so exciting to see. And that really, from that day on, I realized what the print shop was. But the print shop was a preview of each other's work, and if we were open and willing, and that's Powerhouse's way, is to be open, willing, and not gatekeeping on this stuff.
Right.
We could actually further conversations faster.
Because I mean, often artist studios are like, trade secrets are in there. So when you go to the print shop, you're like, they're making that print,
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that.
Yeah. Well, when we were printing with Lorna Simpson on felt, people come in, I want to do some felt. I'm like, I can't print on felt. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I just can't do any more felt pieces. You can go
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
But then once I was working with Rebecca Quaitman, R.H. Quaitman, and we were standing here working with her, and another designer was, I was working with a designer, Rebecca was on another press, and the designer was like, you know what, I just want this to look like a R.H. Quaitman. And I was like, Rebecca? They had no idea, and she's like, what? And it's like, and then, mortified. This designer was mortified. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is the
last
current body of work up at Howes and Wirth on 19th Street, right?
Yeah,
now.
I think today, 18th Street. I think
18th
today might be, is that right? Today's the last day, so when the lecture finished, get in an Uber and go see them. They were done by, I did some drawings by putting kozo paper, Japanese paper, on an old, bad stranger in the village painting using a Baldwin text, and doing rubbings. And so each drawing was sort of different, and I was rubbing with carbon, wet, moist paper, laying it down on the painting. The painting has a little impasto where the letters are, and just doing a rubbing. And Luther came, you came to the studio, and I did a little demonstration.
You invited me, and it was really, all this time working together, it was really meaningful to me. I was there, and you're like, here's how I make my things, right? And it was like, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then you was like, here are the materials, right? And this was, I'm revisiting something that should be clear in my head because it wasn't that long ago. But, and then we took the materials back to our shop and played with them and reinvented the materials you were using to be.
They basically made an ink that was carbon with a binder in it.
Nellie made the ink, yes.
Nellie,
Yes.
made that ink. And what was great about that is like the drawings I was making were using carbon. The carbon was water soluble. So they would spread and bleed out. But how do you do that as a silkscreen? Well, you get somebody to make an ink for you that remains water soluble after it dries. And so blew up little drawings like this to this scale. They're 72 inches high, something like that. Silkscreened them with this water soluble ink. And then I took them back to the studio and worked on them, pouring acrylic paint on them, wetting them so they spread out.
Yep. And they had golds in them. They were all sorts of colors.
Yeah. Somebody were asking, we'll stop, but somebody was asking me about blue, how they got the blue, because I'm not a color guy. And I was like, I just went to our supply store and bought all the blues they had.
Yep.
That's all.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. And while we're in the studio, like, I don't know if this is going to work on that blue, but we never told you. It did. It did work. Some of them didn't work. Oh, I remember you, I was doing one drawing. Is there another slide of this? No, it's probably not in this one. No, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Oh,
joining
no,
us.
wait,
But one more thing. There was one of the drawings, one of the silk screens, I sprayed it with tap water out of a spray bottle, and it started turning kind of brown gold, and I was like, what the fuck is happening here? And I called up Luther, like, hey, Luther, what's the, there's chemical reaction between was it the gum arabic?
Yeah, and the pH of your water.
pH of the water, you should be using distilled water. I was like, nice to know, but what happened with that drawing was it sort of turned this golden brown. I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
So I love when those things happen. They're accidents. I can't predict them. But again, don't miss the chance, you know. Yeah. Thank you, Luther.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Don't run off because we do have about 15 minutes, 10 minutes for Q&A. So, any questions from our group here? Excellent, I have a question that I've been dying to ask. I'm like, great. I was really hoping nobody would have an initial question. Really curious about this idea of play and experimentation and also the realities of a deadline. And so thinking through, Luther has talked so frequently about time allotted for experimentation and play, but it seems like you were so enthusiastic about experimentation. I'm wondering, what do you do when there are happy mistakes that happen after experimentation time has passed?
Interesting.
And your gallery's pushing for a piece to be finished.
Utah? Sorry, calling somebody out in the audience.
I have a lore thing, and I'll answer. We were doing a body of work for you, and I said, so what show is this for? And you said, and I don't know if this was true, but you said, oh, this isn't for a show. I need to work on something right now, and I have some ideas. And I know that you have deadlines, because there's sometimes like where I know you have a deadline, but I don't know if that's true. There's a body of work where you're just working through a process too. And that's liberating as a printer who's like, you have to have these by Monday. It's kind of attitude on a lot of things we have.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me. I kind of need the time to develop the idea on site, kind of. I don't, as I said before, I don't come in with like a thing that I think, oh, this is gonna be brilliant, and it never works out, you know? So I need the time to see where it can go. I'm not very good at planning out, which is a very inefficient way to work with the printer, is charging you by the hour. But Luther has been very, very, very generous about letting me take the time and being in the studio for weeks in your studio for weeks at a time, and then changing my mind after something was printed and you thought you were done with me. And I was like, we're gonna do a little bit more on top of these things. So they've been incredibly generous around your time, like letting me work in the studio.
It's pretty fun, so it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to be generous.
There are great pictures of Luther standing on the press, you know, like, because the screens were too big and somebody had to pull the squeegee. You were
yeah.
on top
It's
of the
teamwork.
press.
Once again, there's 8 of us that are working. Sometimes all 8 of us are working on these prints in one way or the other.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
In those paintings with the smears, the ink was so thick it took like 4 people to pull the squeegee.
Yeah.
Cool. So the answer is a team of 8 and a very generous printmaker.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other folks with questions? Excellent.
I noticed you said something about your autobiographical work being seen kind of through the lens of somebody else. Do you notice that has changed at all with social media, increased surveillance, that kind of, I guess, increased feedback from other people? Has that changed your work or your self-perception?
Yes, I think because we have thousands of images of ourselves on our phones. That does change the way one perceives oneself, but that hasn't really made it into my work yet, because still the work is all quotation. It always has to start with something else that's external to me. And I'm still using Baldwin text, but I realized over time, like last couple of years, I realized I've used that Baldwin text, particularly Stranger in the Village, so much that it's kind of like the ground that I make my work on top of. So imagine, a painting, it starts with a white canvas and you put some marks on top of it. Well, Baldwin is my ground now. And so the paintings seem to be made on, so the text is not arbitrary. It has to mean something specific to me, but then I can work on top of it, make it into something else. But that ground is important, and what a better ground than James Baldwin.
I have to speak of a self-portrait that that you made that is really pivotal in my life. Glenn, you had a show, was it the Whitney? You had a back of your head in all the posters, right? Was it the Whitney? Was it the Whitney show? Back of Glenn's head, right? And I know Glenn well enough. The second I saw these, and imagine all the subways have these, right? I'm like, oh my God, that's Glenn's head, right? And it's the first person I know that's on a subway poster, right? And it's just the back of your head. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then people started like drawing faces on Glenn's head. And I was outraged. I'm like, that's Glenn Ligon's head. How dare you draw it? But then I wish I had documented them because they were all so playful. You know, people had to have a face on the head.
Yeah, that was a weird experience to get off at, like, you know, Broadway Lafayette, and there's a poster at the back of my head. I was like, wow, okay. Anyway, other questions?
Hi, yes. So it seems like you really trust your intuition, is what I'm hearing from all of this process. Like these mistakes, you really trust that this is a mistake you can run with. And I'm wondering if that's always been the case in your practice, or if that was something you built up towards. Like, do you have any, how did you get there?
Oh, I think that's learned behavior, I think. No, seriously, I think you have to learn to trust your intuitions. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't come naturally, because there's always some art you're trying to imitate. There's always someone telling you, oh, this could be better if you do X, Y, and Z. But I find that if I go away from myself too much, the work suffers because I don't like making it anymore. And when I don't like making it, it usually doesn't come out well, you know? So I have to find something that draws me back into the work, you know? When I'm trying to be Jasper Johns, or I'm trying to be, you know, David Hammond, so let it go, Glenn, let it go. Get back to, you know, be informed by that work, you know? But find a way in that's your own, that's all. So, yeah, but it's taken me a long time to, you know, some group of students came to my studio and were talking about work and making space for your work, and they were like, afterwards their professor was like, they were shocked, you're so insecure. I was like,
that's amazing.
Yep.
Well, I think the luxury of making mistakes in this day, one great thing about printmaking is you can make a lot of mistakes fast. You can make 1,000 mistakes faster than anyone can even acknowledge that they're mistakes. And so I think one of the beautiful things as you walk around our print fair is to speak to everyone. Everyone up there has ink under their nails, and they know the ordeal to get to the finished image. And what is that happy mistake might be the thing that defines your career. So embrace the mistakes, print on a million things, and see how it turns out.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.